Hey kids, thanks for joining me in the garage again. I know it's been a little while, so welcome back. We're going to be working on the Rambler in today's video, and I'll be using it to show you how to do a compression test on any combustion engine vehicle you have. As an added bonus, we'll do a leak down test to get an idea of why your combustion engine may have zero compression. Spoiler alert. As you're probably aware, you'll need a few tools to do these tests, so let's go over them before we head over to the engine bay. First, you're going to need a ratchet and a spark plug socket. Typically, I also have a long extension just to make it a little less backbreaking bent over the front core support there. For the leak down test, you may also consider one like a 1/4 inch long extension to help make finding that top dead center for each cylinder you're testing a little easier. I do it a little bit different, but that's one thing you could do to get top dead center. So now, depending on your make and model, you may have to remove some other trim pieces or whatnot in the engine compartment to reach the spark plugs. Just, take a look in there, see what tools you need, use your brains. Next, you're going to need a compression test kit as well, of course. This is the Maddox brand from Harbor Freight. I've used it a few times now doing compression tests on a couple vehicles. It runs about $40 or so at Harbor Freight, or at least I'll let you know right here if I'm lying to you or not. It, of course, comes with a gauge, a long reach, and a normal 14 millimeter, as well as different adapters for the threads. And, we'll go over how to use this in the car here in a few moments. So finally, our leak down test kit, which I got on the Large Lady website. I believe I paid about $30, or at least I'll tell you whether I'm lying or not right here. And this just, simple, the gauge blocks for the test, and then a couple of adapters for your spark plug holes. Now, keep in mind for the leak down test kit, you'll need an air compressor to supply air to the kit's gauge block. But other than that, you should have everything. Now that we've gone over these two tests, let's go over to the car, explain how to use them, and then we'll see what these two tests are telling us about our engine. Now that we're over in the engine bay, let's go over to use both of these kits. We'll start with the compression test kit here. First thing you'll need to know is that you'll need to crank the engine while doing this test. So there are a few things you'll need beforehand. You'll want to remove the ignition relay and most likely the fuel pump relay, since you don't want the engine to actually start and run while you're doing this test here. In my case, I have the key in the off position, and so I won't get any spark while I'm turning it over, but I've also disconnected the fuel pump so I don't get fuel squirting anywhere. So since you'll be cranking the vehicle, you want to have a battery in it, so put the battery in there. And then you'll either need a buddy, or in case for me, I've got the Vice Grip Garage officially certified Lone Wolf 100, which is for this beginner types like me, noob, if you will. That way I can stay here with you nice folks watching me, and I don't have to crawl inside the vehicle to turn the key on. So this simply attaches to the battery post with one clip, and then the solenoid post for the other clip, and you are good to go. Now that you've figured out how we're going to be cranking to get the impression test going, first thing we want to do is remove the boot from the #1 spark plug cylinder here. And then we'll get the spark plug out, and this is where the long extension always comes in handy for me, so I don't have to wrench my back while doing this. A couple things to note when reinstalling your spark plugs is to start them by hand so you don't cross thread them. Don't crank them down too much, just a few foot-pounds is all it takes. But be sure to check your owner's manual for the correct specs there, actual torque specs. So get this spark plug out of there. There we go. All right, so now that we have the spark plug out of there, there's a couple of different tubes in the Maddox compression test kit. Now, one of them, which we'll be using for this engine, this is a 199 cubic inch AMC engine, is a 14 millimeter long reach. And so this one just it's you know, the other style, the other 14 millimeter just didn't reach down there far enough. So this little tube has essentially a Schrader valve on the end of it. That way, as you're pumping it up, you know, that pressure gets sent only in one direction. And so now let's go ahead and we'll get this hooked up here. Now that that is all hooked up, all that remains to do is to actually do this compression test. So what's happening here is essentially the cylinder, and during the compression stroke, is you know, compressing the air in the cylinder. You know, and then once it gets to the top, all that air is compressed, and it hits the power stroke. You know, when the spark lights off. And then, you know, depending on how much pressure you can build in there, be more of a more power in that power stroke. So let's see what we end up with here. So let's watch this for a second here. See if we can get that kind of close there. I don't know if you can see that. All right, here we go. So you can see there it's stopped, and we're maybe 51. 51. You know, I don't know exactly what the specs on this engine are, but it's probably not 51. My guess would be probably maybe 100 more, 150 psi. That's kind of disappointing results, but you know, the next thing we're going to do is we'll do the leak down test on here. We'll just see how that works. So you know, what we're going to end up doing is we'll use this same tube here, since the other kit did not have these long reach ones, and then all we'll do is we'll take the Schrader valve out of this and then hook up the leak down test, and we'll go through an example of that. So to do that, there's a little tool that comes with this Maddox kit. There's actually comes with a bunch of replacement Schrader valves, but as you can see there, if you just remove that, essentially that allows for just, you know, for it to blow completely through this tube, which is what you need to do the leak down test with. So we'll put that back in there, because essentially what the leak down test is doing is pushing air into the cylinder when you've got both valves closed. And so you need to be near or at around top dead center. And what I'm going to do is actually just pump air into it and then slowly crank it around and see where I end up at. That way I don't have to sit there and guess at where my top dead center is. So, all right, make sure that's nice and tight. We'll plug this in just like that, and then we'll plug our air line in. You know, I usually set this to about 120 because that gives a little bit of overhead. And now this has its own regulator knob on it. That way you can get the PSI up to 100 going into the cylinder. And then this other gauge will tell you how much leak you have. And so let me grab my wrench here. It's a 3/4 inch. Put that on the crank bolt. Then we'll get 100 PSI going here. So there you should be able to see 100 PSI on this. It's kind of might be hard to see, but we're going to crank this around. We're going to see if we can get that other knob to go up. So now I can hear air coming out of the intake, so that means the intake valve is open. So that's pulling in. So the next one should be the compression stroke. And I can see as I do that, that little needle moves, but that's it. And I think I'm not going to get much at all. So yeah, right there, you can just see the needle bump when I move this. And so, yeah, that is one dead cylinder. So I'm going to go through these other ones here, do this leak down test and compression test on each of them. I'll put down all of the numbers here, and then we'll go back to the table and we'll review these results and see what we can find out. All right, as you saw there, with just that first cylinder, that is pretty much dead there. So, but we'll go through the other cylinders as well. Show them here on the screen. Again, first cylinder, we had about 53 psi and about 100% leakage. So that cylinder, as you saw, is pretty much dead. So second cylinder, not too much better, about 85 to 95 around in there, with about 98. So it kept the needle up off of the stop there on the leak down test. Third cylinder, a little better, 90. I guess not too much better, but it had 90% leakage, which is still horrible, but better than the first and the second one. Fourth cylinder was the best of the bunch, 115 to 118 psi and about 80% leakage. So again, that's the best of the bunch, and that was horrible. Fifth cylinder was the worst. That's about 35 to 37 psi is what it tested. Again, 100% leakage. Anything about 90 psi or below on the compression test was pretty much 100% on the leak down test. So six cylinder, 72, 74, somewhere around there on the compression test. And again, 100% on the leakage test. So, that engine is pretty much dead. And so, what I ended up doing, as you can see, I got another engine here in the background, and I wanted to keep it kind of, this is an AMC engine, and it's a inline six, right? And so I wanted to kind of keep it that way. And so rather than try to find parts for that and, try to piece together a kit to rebuild it, I'm just going to rebuild something that I know a little more about. And of course, I'm a Toyota person, and so I got an inline six Toyota engine. And so some of you guys can probably guess what that's going to be, but we'll reveal that a little bit later. I should be doing videos here at least once a month, hopefully a little more frequent than that. So I hope you learned something today, and if you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're here for the first time, consider subscribing. You can always follow me on Instagram at Weekend Wrench Turner and TikTok at Weekend Wrench Turner. Thanks for watching. Keep on wrenching.